كنت معكم عبد الرحمن بن إبراهيم. I am a UI UX designer / product designer at Coded. من بعد غنشرح لكم UI UX product design and everything. Donc I have been a UX designer for the past 5 years. It's been a great journey, and right now I transitioned into product design, not a UI UX design, but basically they all they are in the same umbrella, like umbrella, and there is many like roles, and the more you are experienced, the more you are specialized, so that كتبدا تسبيسياليزا في واحد small like role, but it's more specific. Donc كيف ما قلت لكم, I have been a UX designer for the past 5 years. I've learned so much. كيف ما يمكن يسحب لي أن ال UX design راه هو like you're just gonna visualize things, you're gonna design things, زعما بحال you're drawing, or like you're making visuals and outcomes, but it turns out that this is not UX design. Yeah, so before I get started, I want to make this more of a like a conversation or an exchange, like a discussion, instead of me presenting things or me talking about things, because I want to have some user experience into this discussion. ما بغيتش هادشي يكون very boring, me speaking, you guys listening, and
ça marche.
so you guys, if you have any questions, just throw them up. I'm here مستعد نسمع اي كيستيون, ولا الا عندكم شي افكار. Okay. So it's there will be a Q&A. It's okay, but then we can still exchange ideas. Okay,
très bien.
So what we can start with is the misunderstanding. Okay, what is the misunderstanding that goes into design? فاش كتسمع the word design, you might think it's كيف ما قلت لكم, it's all about the visual aspects of a product, but it's like it's only one small part of what UX designers actually do or might do. So باش نعرفوا, UX designers come from a lot of different backgrounds. كاينين marketers, artists, teachers, small business owners, anything really. Donc rather than like sharing similar work histories, UX designers tend to share common skills and interests instead. Donc ماشي بالضرورة انك فهمتي we are coming from the same background ولا قرينا نفس الحاجة, but you can come from any background actually. Donc that's why really it's so much fun. Donc a lot of UX designers have a good sense for visuals, which means you recognize when an image fits or does not fit into the space. But you don't need to know all of these things to be a UX designer or like a graphic designer. Graphic design is not UX design, by the way. So UX designers عندهم واحد الحاجة اللي كتميزهم على كاع the other designers, which is be curious about people and like thinking about how people's like how their mind work. And they also enjoy figuring out how people use products and how to make those products easier to use. So أنا ديما when I get asked about people what is UX design, I would say you don't have to be a designer to be UX designer. UX designers they are good empathizers. So if you are good at empathizing with people, then you're good at being a designer.
سي عبد الرحمن, سمح لي قاطعتك كونسيرنون هاد لو بوين هذا ديال لو فات انك خاصك تحط بلاصتك بلاصه لوتيليزاتور. واش ماشي نقدروا ان هاد الشيء كي ليميتي لا كرياتيفيتي ديال ان يو اكس ديزاينر، حيتاش خاصك كونستامون تحط راسك بلاصه لوتيليزاتور وتفكر بحال كيما كيفكر ان يوتيليزاتور، كيف ما كديرش داكشي اللي باغي انت توطافي، ماشي بحال الجرافيك ديزاين.
That's why it's different. UX design has roles. UX design is not creativity of UX design هو the ability to understand people. It's not like art. You can be an artist, you can create whatever comes into your mind. المشكل اللي كيطرا هو انك when you create something more creative and you try to reinvent the wheel, what usually happens is you design something that is not finally usable. مثلا واحد a bottle that turns up turns open clockwise الى انا جيت بغيت نختار شي حاجه جديده ودرتها كدور من الجهه الاخرى. It might bring confusion. So in order to be
واللي هي اصلا ديك لابليكاسيون مثلا اللي كنصمموا هذاك اليوزر، دونك حنا كنفكروا فيه حيت هو اللي غيستعملها ماشي انا اللي غنستعملها من بعد، دونك هذاك الشيء كنفكروا فيه هو الاول.
Yes, and it happens a lot of times. There are many experiences KZO designers, and they try to reinvent the wheel. They try to make something new because it looks beautiful, looks great. And when they make it, it does not work for the end user. Because the end user for them, they already built mental models. عندهم des applications في التليفون ديالهم، عندهم des sites web اللي ديجا خدموا بهم. فاش كتجي انت كتخدم شي حاجه جديده it ruins their mind. دابا جوجل ميت انا I know where فين غادي نكليكي، عارف كلشي عندي في راسي. يعني الا مشيت لزوم I would expect Zoom to function the same way as Google Meet. So كتلقى دوك changes they are very slight. عندك هذيك البار عندك لتحت، عندك لي ميساج لتحت، دونك everything is the same. وهذاك المنتل موديل ديجا عندي في راسي. دونك انا كديزاينر الا جيت باغي نخدم واحد لابليكاسيون just try to understand the people بعدا. What are they, what their use زعما what do they use every day، شنو كيستعملوا. the target ديالك of course you need to target people who are using your application. واش هذوك البيبل عندهم واحد النوع ديال disability مثلا، واش عندهم مشكل، واش ما كيشوفوش ولا شي حاجه. If you try to understand those people, you're more likely to build a great product. حيت شنو هو البرودكت شكون اللي كيخدم به اليوتيليزاتور فينال. انا بالنسبه لي كديزاينر انا نقدر نخدم شي حاجه زوينه ولكن تقدر ما تخدمش لهذاك اليوتيليزاتور. Donc it's good to be creative in a way of understanding people, not be creative of trying to design something. وباش نجيو لليو اكس designer, it's not about designing. We haven't reached designing phase yet. This is the design phase. We haven't reached that yet. So I'm gonna walk you through that. Donc كيف ما قلت لكم designers they come from different backgrounds. The bigger the company is, the more specialized you are. داكشي علاش فاش كنلقاو مثلا في جوجل كنلقاو interaction designers, UX designers, visual designers, UX writers, product designers. كاين بزاف ديال لي تيتر. It's always good to start from a startup because فاش كتكون في startup you are the only UI UX designers. Don't you try to take all of them. And that's where you learn many different skills. ديك الساعات إلا بغيتي if you want to jump up a little bit and you want to specialize, for example, in UX research, for example, just you're not going to do any designs. You're going to do a lot of research methodologies and getting closer, trying to understand the business and the user. That's another topic. Okay, so what is the importance of UX design? كان واحد research دار by McKinsey company. They studied companies in 3 industries: medical technology, consumer goods, and retail banking. They found out, regardless of the kind of industry, businesses they focus on good usability and design performed better than their competitors. دونك هذوك اللي الشركات اللي كيعولوا بزاف على اليو اكس ديزاين they performed better. شنو طرا من بعد؟ it just comes down to this: when people like a product, they use that product and they recommend it to their friends, and more people using the product means better business for the company. Plus, when users have a good experience with the product, they're more likely to have like a good experience with the product, and it's basically a win-win for the user and for the company. دابا عندك انت تليفون ايفون مثلا, you like it so much that Apple does not have to promote for iPhone. You promote iPhone just because you like the experience. So you are helping the business grow, and you're making the user like happy. So this is why it's very essential. So before we start, it's all about understanding users. It's all about empathizing with users. There are many ways to approach UX design, and many methodologies. To Google, they use their methodology. IBM uses their methodology. So every methodology has different techniques, but they all aim to find the same thing. They all aim to reach a usable and desirable product. Donc تقدروا تكونوا سمعتوا design thinking methodology. كاين double diamond, in the research XL model. There are many methodologies, and they also differ, in for product development life cycle. They differ by time, كل واحد وكيفاش الوقت ديالو وشحال ديال الوقت كياخذ. So we can start with design thinking. But that there are two ways we can categorize the research methods. The first way is based on who conducts the research, and the second way is based on the type of data collected. So first let's think about who conducts the research. عندنا primary research اللي هو research that you conduct yourself. For example, you might interview users, bring them and interview them, try to understand what they need, or put surveys. Also, you can conduct a usability test. Usability test is basically testing other products with them, seeing how they interact with real products. And there are other methods. Also, there is a secondary research, which is basically a research that was conducted by other people. شي حاجة اللي ديجا كانت مثلا just watching the news, looking at her like just statistics from the news. شي حاجة اللي ديجا الناس داروا عليها دي statistic. You can learn from that. It's a secondary research. And there is the other methodology is the data collected. So in qualitative research and quantitative research. Qualitative research is basically quality content or quality answers, and quantitative research is based on numbers. So basically, quantity, when we have surveys, they can give us and we run surveys for thousands of people, we can get quantity data. And if we ask one-on-one interviews, or we did a usability test and we try to understand users, then we get quality data, and that's qualitative and quantitative. The design thinking methodology is basically starting by أول حاجة هي empathize. So they really enhance some empathy. So empathize is in maybe تقدر دير interviews كيف ما قلت لكم, interviews تلاقى مع اليوتيليزاتور, تهضر معاه, تسولو, you get insights from them. The value is when you understand closely what they want, what they need, and how they interact with a product في هذيك الوقت. دونك كاين حاجه اخرى كتسمى contextual inquiry. Contextual inquiry هي فاش انا كنمشي عند اليوتيليزاتور البلاصه فين كيخدم بها بهذاك البرودوي. The product might be an app, a website, a real product, physical product. and then I try to observe them. So that's basically empathy. And then once you empathize, you start defining. So define here next stage, which is basically you observed, you try to cluster it, you try to make sense of it. يعني غادي تجمع هذوك لي زيدي observational insights coming, and then you try to make them, you try to define them. So after definition, after defining the problems or like the observations, then كتخرج بواحد problem statement. This is the real problem that users face. If you were working, for example, if you work for a client, they will say that we are facing this problem. ولكن هذاك البروبلم, it might not be the real problem that the users are facing. So it's good to always look at users. Donc, once you define, then you start ideating. And there are many methods of ideation. I hope this is not boring. I don't want this to be boring, so let me know if if there is anything that's not clear.
Okay.
Donc, ideation, there are other many methods. كما قلت لكم كاين crazy eights. دونك الكريزي 8 هي انك تشد ورقه وستيلو، كتشد ورقه وستيلو، تحط واحد الورقه وستيلو وتبقى دير دي زيدي. هذوك لي زيدي يقدروا يكونوا في تحط مثلا if you are working on an app, you take هذيك الاب, take one feature of it and you design 8 features, like 8 proposals for one feature, and then you try to see which best version that works for that specific user. There's also another method called how might we? So basically, it's a design thinking activity used to translate problems into opportunities for design. And to explain this clearly, the word how, donc how might we? The word how encourages us to explore a bunch of ideas instead of moving forward with only one idea. And it suggests that we don't have an answer yet. The word might emphasizes that we might have many possible solutions, not the only solution. It's not only one, we might have many solutions. And the word we suggests a collaborative effort. Coming up with ideas requires really a team effort, to collaboration environment. Donc هذه هي ideation phase. يمكن ندخلوا فيها حتى competitive audit, as in trying to understand competition, شكون هما competitors ديالنا, how do they tackle هذاك problem, and how did they solve it. من بعد, after the ideation, then we move into the fun part, which is trying to make solutions. انت درتي الايديشن داكشي, هذوك solutions اللي لقيتي, you are trying to put them into digital digital wireframes. Wireframes هما, it's low fidelity, you can design them via any of the softwares, Figma, XD, Sketch. كتبدا غير بداك الشيء بسيط, غير ما كتخدمش على لي كولور, ما كتخدم على حتى شي حاجه typography, nothing. You're just trying to put functionalities. من بعد you can test اللي هي step الاخرى اللي هي testing, ولكن في الهاد design thinking it's an iterative process, donc always it goes in a circle. تقدر ترجع لا فاز اللي قبل منها. مثلا انا لقيت بان البروبلم that I'm trying to I put a wireframe together. I tested the wireframe. كاين واحد testing technique called prototyping paper testing technique, which is basically you print هذوك wireframes, then you put them في واحد الورق بحال هكا, and then you bring a user and you ask the user what would happen if you click here. هذوك راه غير وراق فيهم دوك السكيتشز, ولكن this saves a lot of time. فاش كتبدا تيستي من هاد الوقيته هذه, ما كتحتاجش تمشي ديزايني عاد تخدم هذاك لو ديزاين بالهاي فيديليتي بلي زيكون بلي كولور وداك الشيء كامل it takes you a lot of time and effort ويقدر فهمتي تنسى شي حاجه وخصك تعاود ترجع حتى الاول. من الاحسن you try to edit anything in early phases اللي هي مثلا wireframes, because wireframes do not include any complexities في الUI, في user interface. It only cares about functionalities. Donc حنا we are testing functionalities. Donc فاش كنخدم هذاك الوايرفريم
سي عبد الرحمن توجور في هاد لو فولي هذا اللي كدوي عليه عندي واحد السؤال. زعما علاش مثلا لي زابليكاسيون كبار بحال فيسبوك انستغرام كيبدلوا شويه في اليو اي ديالهم ولا هكا كتلقى بزاف ديال لي زوتيليزاتور كيحتاجوا كيقول لك لا رجعوا لنا ديزاين قديم كان حسن ولا كيكونوا بزاف ديال سميتو ديال لي رياكسيون من هذا لو سونس هذا. بغينا نعرفوا طونك في اليو اكس كيعتمد على اننا الكليون يبقى معنا في البروسيسوس كامل. شنو كيفسر او فينال هذيك لا رياكسيون ديالو تجاه داك الابديت ديال الابليكاسيون؟
كيف ما قلت لك قبل كاين اليوزرز وي بيلد mental models. الى كنا كنخدموا بواحد الابليكاسيون we understand how it works صافي كنولفوا على داك السيستم ديالها. It's hard to make change. ولكن for the business sometimes you have to move, you have to do you have to in order to grow the business you have to upgrade, you have to do a change. For example Instagram if you guys remember اللي عنده ايفون كانت هذيك البلاس بutton كانت لتحت كنتي كتمشي تكليكي واحد لو بوست. من بعد they moved هذيك البلاس button to the top وعوضوها بالريلز. Why? Because they want to compete with TikTok. TikTok عندهم نفس الحاجة. They want to compete with TikTok as well as they are looking forward. They want to have reels. They prioritize reels over like posting like images or whatever. دابا everyone في هذيك الوقيته راه كان ما حاملش انستغرام ديما كتبغي تكليكي على تبغي تاجوتي واحد البوست كتلقى راسك مشيتي للريلز. ولكن ابخي you get used to it حيت هذاك learning curve ما كيتعطلش بزاف and you get used to it and then you start using the app as is. ديك الطريقه اللي هما upgrading you are using it. هما راه they took هذيك الريسك. They know it might cost them a lot of money حيت اليوزرز يقدروا يخرجوا في سناب شات. it happened. سناب شات كان عندها واحد التاب بار بواحد ديزاين زوين. ابخي they changed the tab bar and a lot of users left the app. That was a really a wrong move because واحد competitor. Donc Snapchat now is a very زعما poor. ما بقاش مستعمل بزاف الناس. كلشي الناس مشاو للانستغرام. دونك الموز هذا يقدر يكون السبب ديالهم هو البيزنس وال like upgrading or moving, bringing something new to the industry, and you have to take risks sometimes. And in tech, you build a new mental model لهذوك لي زوتيليزاتور. وشي حاجه اللي في الاول it requires some muscle memory ولكن من بعد it becomes easier for them. This is how it works. دونك باش نرجعوا للوايرفريمز هذاك الديزاين ديال مثلا نهضروا في انستغرام. First they wireframed it. راه ماشي جاو and they designed it وحطوها تمايا. They wireframed it. They tested it with users باش يشوفوا. Sometimes they do A/B testing which means like trying to test 2 versions or like 3 versions or 4 versions for some specific users and you are trying to see which one performs better. You select which one is actually the one that you're gonna implement. Donc كيف ما قلت لكم it's an iterative process. If I made a mistake or if I didn't understand the problem in the wireframe, then I go back to the define stage and then I try to reimagine the problem statement and then I move up to ideation. But ideation, prototyping, كيف ما قلت لكم, prototyping, if the wireframe performs great, then you move into high fidelity. High fidelity هو أنك you start coming up with your creative designs and skills, colors, typography, but based on the wireframes. You're not reinventing the wheel or making something that was not in the research. The research كامل اللي درتي to understand users. You are working on something that really that's following what comes up in your findings in your research. And then after the high fidelity, you move to usability tests. Usability tests is basically there is moderated usability test or unmoderated usability test. Each one is different. One that gives you qualitative insights, the other one gives you quantitative insights. Moderated usability test هي فاش كتكون نتايا مع l'utilisateur you are guiding them, but you make sure that you're not leading them into answering in a way. كاين واحد الحاجه كتسمى designer bias, which is basically not a designer bias. Sorry, designer bias is basically when you design based on your abilities and biases. ولكن this is it has another name, I don't know, but it's a bias where basically you are leading users to answer desirability bias or friendliness bias. had friendliness bias هي فاش كيكون اليوتيليزاتور they feel like you are being friend with them وكيخاف انه يقول لك شي حاجه اللي ما غاديش تعجبك وانت راه it's not on your favor. فهمتي؟ الا قال لك هو شي حاجه اللي ما غاتعجبكش ولا بغى يبان زوين وقال لك واحد الجواب اللي ما غيعجبكش يقدر ما يكونش the true answer. فهمتي؟
Okay, yes.
Donc you fall in في هذاك البايس and you don't get real insights. It doesn't help your product grow. فهمتي؟ حيت في الحقيقه فاش كيجي هو يستعمل هذيك لابليكاسيون وكان طرات لنا بزاف ديال المرات when we test apps كنمشيو عند لي يوتيليزاتور كنحاولوا نتيستيو لي زابليكاسيون. واحد المره بالضبط we had زعما في the company I used to work in we had in our meeting room جبنا الكاطو وداك الشيء الحلوه and we brought users فاش شافوا هذاك الشيء they were فهمتي هادو تهلاو فينا بحال هكا we will not tell them what's because if we tell them what's bad they will not do the same thing زعما
again. Okay.
دونك فاش بداو لي زوتيليزاتور كيتيستيو لابليكاسيون you see them that they don't succeed ولكن كيقولوا لك it's good زوينه صراحه هذيك لابليكاسيون قديمه. Those answers you have to avoid them حيت they have biased insights. It's contextual inquiry is good. You have to go to the context of use. فين اليوتيليزاتور كيستعمل لابليكاسيون. مثلا هاد لابليكاسيون كيخدموا بها الناس اللي خدامين في محلات ولا شي حاجه. You have to go to them حيت هذوك الناس غالبا كيكونوا distracted. كيكونوا جايين عندهم ناس اخرين كيبغيو يتقداو عندهم ولا هما خدامين. Donc they are not using the product بالطريقه اللي انت كتخيلها. انت جالس حدا البيسي وعندك كلشي HD. It's not the same thing. ولا هذا عنده تليفون مثلا ايفون 5 ليكرون ديالو صغيره وانت عندك ايفون 11 drastic difference. Donc you have to think about هذوك users as well. It is users might be poor, might be rich على حسب الابليكاسيون ديالك وعلى حسب التارجت ديالك. They might be old, they might be young. You have to think about every aspect in order to make a product usable. حيت كاين عاوتاني كاينين دي برودوي اللي يقدر دي زابليكاسيون اللي يقدروا يكونوا كتخدم بهم كيجيوك زوينين وفي نفس الوقت عاديين في الخدمه ديالهم. You know how to use them. وكاينين دي products اللي they are usable. كانت UX design foundation ديالهم it was good ولكن في اللوك ديالهم they don't look good. Donc you can use them which is good ولكن you don't like them so they are not desirable. If they are usable and not desirable they can work, but the problem is when you have a great design, visuals, good visuals, but the product is not usable. انا عاجبني الابليكاسيون ولكن ما عرفتش شنو غندير باش غادي نحقق هذاك التاسك ديالي. In that case, your product is not successful, does not succeed. It's always good to have a foundation, UX design foundation, as in understanding your user and understanding the business. Because at the end of the day, you're working for a client or like you're working for your own product, you get to benefit from هذيك الابليكاسيون. كيف ما قلت لكم في الأول, if you want to benefit from it, make something that's user centric. وهذاك اليوزر هو اللي غادي يدير لك هذيك البروموشن. You don't have to do it. And you won't be spending a lot of money. Donc, it's all about how you make a product usable and desirable at the same time. You have to have UI skills, bien sûr. Okay, with wireframes. So basically, كيف ما قلت لكم, wireframes comes into the prototyping phase. عندنا باش نعاودوا نرجعوا من الاول. عندنا empathy, عندنا define stage, ideate stage, and then prototype stage. هي فين كيجيو wireframes. Wireframes are basic sketches. They don't have to have any design visuals. من بعد كتستيهم if they work, if everything works. إلا ما خدمتش شي حاجة, you have to reimagine how it should work. If everything works perfect, then you move into the high fidelity. Then you add colors, typography. هاد الفيز هي, it's very complex to know about UI standards or UI principles. It's not easy, it's complex. Donc usually هادوك الناس عندهم visual skills. They know how to play with visuals to make products desirable. هنا كنرجعوا ل desirability. من بعد, if the products go well, then كنمشيو للفيز الأخرى اللي هي testing, which is basically testing an app with real users. وهذيك الاب it should be interactive. دابا في هذه الوقيته ديالنا راه every software can bring an app to reality without even ما تحتاجش develop الابليكاسيون تمشي للفرونت اند والباك اند. You can just use wireframe, be high fidelity designs with prototypes. You can link screens with screens and make them interactive. And then once you make them interactive, you can upload it to your, use the software in your phone and give users your app to test it. And I'm going to show you عندي واحد التستين session اللي كنت درتها. I think there's a question here.
Yeah. Yes, sir. From Umayma.
Where do you go for UX design inspiration, and what do you think the most important skills as UX designer should have? Donc نبدا من السؤال الاخراني. دابا هذه فكرتني في واحد البايس. كاينه واحد البايس دابا باش نذكرها مادام تفكرتها هنايا. كيقول لك انك فاش كتكون كدير يوزابيليتي تيست, be aware that users only catch the first few and the last few. إلا سولتي لي زوتيليزاتور مثلا بزاف ديال لي كيستيون, هما راه غادي يعقلوا غير على هذوك الاولين وهذوك الاخرين. هذوك اللي في الوسط ديما ما عندهم.
Indeed, yes.
دونك هادشي اللي طرا لي انا دابا فاش أميمة she asked, I only thought about the last question. ما فكرتش في هذيك الاولى.
Great tip.
تصور ان عندك بزاف ديال لي كيستيون. Try to make sure you give a question and then you let users answer. ما تعطيهمش بزاف ديال لي كيستيون because they won't answer to all of your questions. Then بزاف ديال الانسايتس غادي يمشيو لك في هذاك اليوزابيليتي تيست. Donc the most important for UX designer, كيف ما قلت لكم قبيله, حيت UX is not UI, it's different. انا كتبان لي UX بحال واحد السيركل كبيره و UI is a part of it ديال الداخل. ولكن empathy هي اهم حاجه تكون عند اليو اكس ديزاينر, حيت هي اللي كتخليك تقرب لي زوتيليزاتور. وكاين واحد لا ديفيرونس entre empathy and sympathy. It's different. Empathy is when you put yourself, or when you put yourself and your abilities in the user's shoes. Sympathy is for example, if someone is sick, you're just gonna tell them, oh, I'm sorry for you, I feel bad for you, and then you go. Empathy is you do an action. You're trying to help them get out of their situation or whatever. And this is where empathy is really, really valuable. Where do you go for UX design inspirations? So I don't know what you mean by UX design inspiration. I would say UI design inspirations, if this is the question you've asked. So UI design inspirations, there are many platforms, and I can answer this question later on. It's غادي تجي la phase ديالها. But UX design inspiration is real world interactions. كتشوف الناس كيفاش كيتعاملوا دابا مع لي زابليكاسيون، شنو كيمشيو وشنو كيديروا، and you observe them and you try to not be biased with them, so you get real data, usable data. اوكي سو كنا كنهضروا على الحافظه على اليوزابيلتي تيست. قلت لكم غنوريكم واحد التيست. I have done moderated usability tests. تقدر ديرهم في real life، تمشي عند اليوزاتور وتقدر ديرهم دابا في you couldn't interact with people. So that's what we used to work for. I'm gonna share my screen with you. One sec, please. Okay, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
دونك نشوفوا واحد it's a fun usability test. Donc, as you see, هنايا الutilisateur they are using the prototype. هنايا خدمنا Fidelity for an app, and they are using our prototype. And هنايا, as you see, she's trying to. I'm not trying to ask her leading questions. كنقولهاش واحد لا كيسيون اللي تقدر تخليها تجاوب بواحد الطريقه معينه. كنحاول انني I get as much insights as I can from her, and I always ask follow-up and open-ended questions.
نمشي اول حاجه غادي نقلب على لافي الاولى اللي انا باغاها مكناس كازابلانكا. مي سا ديبون. الا كنت انا في مكناس غادي ندير اكتيفي لا لوكاليزاسيون اكزاكت ديالي.
Ça marche.
دونك فوالا فاش انا باغا نمشي ان سامدي. اوه واعر هادي كنت قلت لكم المره اللي دازت سوبر. انا الفتح ديالي باغا نمشي. واو والله الا فرحت
الحمد لله.
حيت دابا انا باغا نمشي انا ومي دو فخير.
Can you guys still hear the...
كندير اون غاز.
دونك هنايا في هاد التيست هذا بعض المرات كتخدم واحد لابليكاسيون اللي it's based on the user. What happens is users كيحسوا بالفرحه لواحد الحاجه اللي انت خادمها for your business, and they feel happy for it.
Yes.
It's because you designed based on a user-centric methodology. دونك هنايا if a product works well راك كتحس بلي اليوتيليزاتور كيمشي من واحد البوين واحد كيف ما انت تخيلتيها. You're not trying to ask them any questions زعما اللي غادي تقدر تجربهم من شي حاجه, but they are still like using the app normally. كتحس بلي الاب is وهنايا واحد الحاجه اللي مهمه. You are testing three things. You are testing the effectiveness of the app, اللي هي how much time does it take from user to move from point A to point B. You are using the efficiency. How well users complete their task? Did they make any errors, or did they complete it very successfully? And satisfaction here, how do users feel after completing that task? if they feel good then it means you are hitting their empathy. راك وصلتي للامباثي ديالهم and your product is successful. هادشي حنا كنهضروا عليه قبل ما نوصلوا للديفلوبمنت ديال البرودكت، يعني قبل ما تخدم الباك اند والفرونت اند. Imagine how much time it took هذوك developers to do all of this. They didn't do all of this for sure، ولكن it was hard for them باش يديفلوبي واحد الابليكاسيون اللي اصلا it's not usable. هما ما عارفينش اصلا علاش كيخدموها اللي كيخدموها. دونك كتلقى في شحال هذه كان بروفيل واحد سميتو ويب ديزاينر. they can do design front end back end full stack، ولكن المشكل ديال generalist they miss a lot of things. ماشي بحال specialist who is good at this can do this and complete it successfully and then move it to front end developers. ديك الساعه front end developers they are just trying to code what you've done 100%. they don't change anything, but it's good to include the engineers into the research because they get the sense of empathy as well. حيت إلا واحد front end developer ولا back end developer did not know the holistic story, the product might not be as you imagined it. فهمتي انت تقدر تكون كتفكر في ديزانتيراكسيون وشي حاجه وهو ما وصلتش ليه ليدي كيف ما انت بغيتيها. دونك and designers are pixel perfect كيهتموا بهذوك لي بيكسلز صغيورين. front end they don't give a
indeed. ديما كنسمعوا في لي بحال هكا في لي زاجونس هكا ديما كاين صداع ما بين الديزاينرز وما بين الفرونت اند ديفلوبرز على هاد القضيه ديما.
ديما كيقول لك فهمتي يا ديزاينر انت
كتحلم بزاف وهذا.
الصراحه راه عندهم الصحراء فاش كيجي الديزاينرز اللي ما فاهمينش راه كيحلموا بزاف، راه كيبداو يتخيلوا شي حاجه اللي فيها بزاف ديال لي زانيماسيون لي زانتيراكسيون it's not usable. Why are you trying to make it hard for yourself? Just go with the easiest possible. The normal إذا بغيتي البرودكت يخدم مزيان راه كل ما كان الديزاين ديالك نورمال وعادي وسامبل وكان خدام ومفهوم من عند لي يوتيليزاتور راه احسن ما يكون فيه الزواق وفيه التخربيق فهمتي. ولكن developers زعما what they have to understand is UI is not UX. هذاك اللي كي عندي الصداع هنايا. دونك هذاك الشخص اللي كتلقاه كيخدم غير ديزاين راه he's not a UX designer. UX designer is whom understands the needs of users and understands the business as well. So it's all about compromising.
واحد القضيه واحده اخرى غير كونسيبت مثلا شحال اونلاين كتاخذوا من يوتيليزاتور باش كتديروا معاه هاد لو تيست بحال اللي درتو معاه في هاد لابليكاسيون هذا.
دونك هنايا غادي نرجعوا ل qualitative research and
yes.
So qualitative data is شي حاجه اللي بغيتي تاخذ insights من عند الناس. You want to understand people. دونك في هذيك الحاله 5 is sufficient. علاش؟ حيت كاين واحد there is an article from the NN group إذا سمعتوا به. They are the fathers of UX design, Norman and Nelson group. كاين واحد الارتيكل كيقول لك انك فاش كتكون كدير واحد التيست ولا كتكون كدير interviews if you exceed more than 5 people. انا كنهضر دابا في الكواليتي.
yes.
if you exceed more than 5 people كتولي تلقى نفس الحوايج اللي كيقولوا هذوك 5 people زعما كيولي داكشي ريبيتيتيف فهمتي.
yes.
كاين واحد الجراف واحد الشورت غادي بحال هكا. I will show it to you guys. I can't.
Okay.
I'm sorry for not like getting a presentation together because this was a really short notice.
Yes,
I didn't have time to do so.
No problem.
But yeah, I don't know if you guys can see it. ولكن نعطيكم ليا ادخلوا لهاد اللين. And then for those who can't see the link, I'm gonna share my screen with you. دونك كيف ما كتشوفوا في هذا الجراف هذا ما عندنا هنا number of users و usability problem found. دونك وصلتي ل 6 ديال اليوزرز شتي شحال الجراف طلع. دونك من 6 ل 15 اليوزر انت غادي كيبقى دوك الفايندينز كيقللوا بزاف. maximum of users زعما اللي كتاخذ منهم بزاف ديال الفايندينغز هما 5 people, like 5 users. And then for unmoderated usability test ولا تيست اللي ما كيحتاج اللي زعما تقدر تاخذ فيه غير الكوانتيتي ريزولتس، تقدر دير 200 300 واحد. You know, like surveys تقدر you can ask you know qualitative questions as well as you can ask quantitative questions. كاين الا حطيتي واحد السيرفي مثلا فيسبوك بغيتي تسول واحد تارجت اللي هو الناس اللي خدامين في واحد اللي كاينين في واحد لو جروب مثلا، بغيتي تسولهم دي كيسيون تقدر تحطو غادي يجيوك بزاف ديال لي ريبونس. دونك هادوك they are quantity answers. Okay. Donc to go back to where we were, what's the best for you, Figma or Adobe XD? These are honestly just tools. They are just tools. Any tool can make a product. Can make a product ولكن راكم عرفتوا الفاليو فين كاين. For my preference, I think I have been using Adobe XD for the past 3 years, and then I transitioned into Adobe and into Figma. ومن بعد دزت السكتش. ولكن what I found is that كل واحد عنده واحد strengths and weaknesses. مثلا Figma you have more collaboration، تقدر تصيفط ليا تدخلوا كاملين نفس artboard and you can work together. Adobe XD does not provide this, but Adobe XD has advanced animation and interactions and prototyping tools. Donc إلا كنتي غتيستي l'application ديالك to have a real app, you can use Adobe XD. If you are to work with a team on the same product, you can use Figma. And it's just a matter of preference. What matters really is the usability and desirability.
سي عبد الرحمن يو اكس وايز شكون اللي احسن فيهم كوتي يو اكس الدومين ديالك؟
It's nothing to do with the softwares. UX. Yeah. It's nothing to do with the softwares. نقدر نقول لك باللي if you are to work with UX, you are to find زعما tools like Miro. Miro, for example, is for collaboration. If you want to work to solve a problem, you can use Miro. I can show you one of my projects that I worked on. In Miro, هذه غير research phase. Let me open the file. Miro is really a great tool for collaboration. It's really good. You can add as many people as you want. Donc, في هذا البرودكت اللي we worked on, it was a product for people that are blind and them disability. It's really different. أول حاجة you are trying to find what is the problem, what do people have. كتدخلوا نتوما والتيم ديالكم في واحد conversation هنايا, and then you start pinpointing to where the problems, and then once you find the ideas and where the problem exists, then you have a project prompt, and then define stage. Now we did foundational research. There is also something called persona. You might be familiar with it. Is where you try to understand who is the user, their demographics, what do they want, what do they feel, and then from that we also ran a survey, and these are all the answers for the survey. We interviewed 5 users. هادو هما اليوزرز اللي كانوا عندنا. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Clubhouse. If you are, then we did هذاك interviews in Clubhouse. Basically, هانتوما هنايا يبان لكم بان this is Arthur. He's blind, and the app was for guiding dogs. دونك هذوك البلايند بيبل عندهم كيكون عندهم واحد الجايدين دوغ ديالهم اللي كيديهم فين كيكونوا كيتمشاو في الطريق ولا خارجين برا. دونك هذاك الجايدين دوغ هو اللي they guide them into what they want. Donc we want to make an app for هذوك blind people to find the guiding dogs. And in order to do that, we have to see how do they do it right now? How do they find dogs right now? Donc we did it with Otter, and we have the whole script. You can write as much as you can about the guy. What did they say? How do they do it? So as you see here, there are 5 users, and each users will have a script for them. And then كتخدم interviews اللي هو في empathy. You start clustering هاد الداتا هاد. So these are the just they're fictional pictures. They are not real pictures, but it's always good to have pictures. حيتاش فاش كتكون كتخدم واحد الديزاين مثلا ولا كتخدم واحد الابليكاسيون, you always think about كتقول Otter needs هاد الحاجة to be there. And you think about Otter. This will increase your empathy. Donc this is called an empathy map. So كدير شنو قال, what they say, what did they say, what did they think, and what did they really do, and how did they feel. So think is something you can just generate from what they say, okay, and what they do is also something that they say, and what they feel. هو فاش كتشوف هذاك اليوتيزاتور مثلا كيهضر, it's good to see them الا كنتي قادر دير فيديو كولز with them, ولكن if you can't, you can just realize how they talk. مثلا هنايا he is lonely, living by himself. So as long as he's living by himself, you can know that he feel lonely. Donc he wants a dog to be with him. Okay, so it's a moderated usability test plan. You put the project background together, research goals and research questions. شنو هما الجولز اللي كتحاول تاخذهم من هذا اليوزابيلتي تيست؟ ترسل باش يكمبليتي واحد تاسك. conversion rates, شحال ديال شنو هو الريتس ديال الناس اللي ديجا يقدروا task successfully, and then you have user error rates. من بعد you get together usability question اللي غتسول الناس, and then there is a head table هذا with all participants of the usability test, and then you have tasks. مثلا user successfully booked a ride, عندك 100% conversion, no errors. User changed the date easily. It's a carpooling app. I don't know if you guys are familiar with PPPLR. It's an app that we're rebuilding, redesigning, reimagining for the clients. It's going to be out soon, so you better use the app and tell us what you think. هنايا user filtered by gender. So هنايا كتشوف the conversion rates. For example, if anything here is 100%, it means that the design is successful. If مثلا you have five had closed check or whatever they then you should think about creating it in a different way. هاد dots, red dots هما number of errors users make. In this case, we have only one error, which is not a real problem. So and then here you find suggestions from users, what users want. In this case, user want to see the number of places total and left in carts. We have 60%. 60% is sufficient to design had a feature had. Donc we've at the end of the day, when you get this, you try to cluster had data you get, and then you put it into insights. هذوما insights مثلا هنايا 60% of users wants to see both places left and total prices and card. We've implemented that feature and other features as well. So this is an example of usability test of how it's done and how you can conduct it.
Just before we move on, make our first step in UI UX design work. Je pense que la question c'est ça.
How to make your first step.
Yeah, first step. اللي بغى عادي يبدا في الدومين باش يبدا او جوست.
This is a really hard question. I don't know how to answer that question. So, from my experience, I started as a graphic designer. كيف ما قلت لكم تقدر تجي من بزاف ديال الباك جراوند. هذوك الناس اللي كتبقى عندهم they are good with psychology. They know how to deal with people. كيعرفوا كيفاش يتعاملوا مع الناس. هذوك الناس غالبا كتلقاهم they are good UX designers. Donc UX واحد الحاجة أخرى. UX designers are everyone that can help shape the decision. ولا واحد designer أنا I call it a designer. Yes, because they helped shape the app ولا shape the product. Donc the way to start UX design is by if we're talking about UX design, then it's always good to be a good empathizer, as well as you start reading about how to be good at understanding people, how to be good at promising between people and the business. And there are many courses out there. Right now, there is the Google course. It's a really good one because it just walks you through the holistic process of design. And as you go, you get to practice. You get to do a lot of tests. So it's something I recommend. There is also the Interaction Foundation platforms. They have many certificates. These are things that I use, and I'm telling you for about UX. I'm like, this is what I thought it was. I just thought it was something that's to do with visuals, creating. Maybe because I have a graphic design background, don't get the bias. But then it turns out to be different, user-centric.
Okay.
So yeah, that's.
كاينه واحد لا ريمارك جوستومون ديال الامباثي والبيس في السايكولوجي ديجا منشوناتها أميمة فايلات قالت لك user psychology in general impacts the feedback, so I think that there is a psychology team behind just to predict how users will feel, and this is why I guess Mark Zuckerberg has a PhD in psychology.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. Next question من عند هدى قالت لك what's the difference between empathy maps and personas?
Yeah, so empathy maps increases just the points of empathy. It's a persona here, you get the demographics of the person. شحال في عمر هذا الشخص هذا، فين عايش، شنو كيدير في الخدمة ديالو, and you try to understand the user. ولكن empathy maps are coming from interviews. Not interviews, كاينين other methodologies like contextual inquiries, كاين focus groups. Donc empathy maps is when you observe users. You try to see how they think, how they feel, what they do, and how they do it. These are the 4 things that really matters in the empathy maps.
That's clear. Okay. Next question من عند أنس قال لك how did you get your first job as a UI UX designer?
How did I get my job? It was a coincidence. I guess I had so basically, in order to get a job, you have to have a strong portfolio. And when I say portfolio, I talk about like case studies. So it depends on what job are you looking for. If you're looking for UI UX design, then you have to be really generalist. You have to understand the holistic view. INSAD, it means that you have to have case studies. And when I say case studies, I don't mean interfaces or like for example, apps or websites that you've done, but the research, the process that I've walked you through, it has to be all in the case study. A lot of writing, by the way. It has to be, have to write about your users, put your personas, your empathy maps, your user journeys, your ideation techniques, your usability test, everything that you've done has to be put together in one file. By the way, in Morocco, unfortunately, they see like people here only care about the outcome. When they ask for a UI UX designer, they only ask for what you would give them, the delivery, basically the interfaces, which sucks. But then you have to really show them the real value of UX design.